He left the scholarship on a Wednesday, packed one bag, didn't finish the placement interview, didn't say a proper goodbye to the campus that had been his entire world for 4 years, just left, for a girl who smiled at him on a Tuesday. At 60, sitting in a one-bedroom apartment with a cup of tea going cold on the table, he told me that Wednesday was the most expensive day of his life. Stay with me for the next 15 minutes, because what I'm about to tell you is not a cautionary tale someone invented to scare young people into being practical. This is the story of a real man, a real choice, and a real reckoning 40 years in the making. And if you are 20 right now, or 22, or 25, and you are in love with someone who makes you feel like you've already arrived, I need you to hear every word of this. His name was Arjun, first generation, son of a factory worker who spent 22 years on the same shift, with the same cracked, grease-stained hands that soap never fully cleaned. Arjun watched those hands at dinner every night of his childhood and made a quiet promise. Somewhere around the age of 12, his hands would tell a different story, and for the first 20 years of his life, he kept that promise. He won a full merit scholarship to study electrical engineering in 1984. For a boy from a factory neighborhood, that wasn't just an opportunity. It was a door that had never existed for anyone in his family, and it was standing open. He met Reena 3 months before his final exams. She was laughing when he first saw her, at something he didn't hear, with someone he didn't know. And he remembered thinking in that first moment, she laughs like someone who has never had to worry about anything. He was 20 years old. He thought that was beautiful. He didn't yet know it was a warning. She came from quiet, comfortable wealth, problems solved with phone calls instead of sleepless nights. And here is the truth Arjun only understood at 50. He wasn't just attracted to Reena. He was attracted to the feeling of being chosen by someone from that world. When she looked at him, he felt like he had already become the man he was still in the process of building. That feeling is one of the most dangerous things a young person can experience, because it makes you stop building. Why construct something when you already feel like you've arrived? Within 6 weeks, he was missing study sessions, skipping career preparation lectures. Absent from placement interviews, his classmates were treating like their lives depended on them, because their lives did, and so did his. He just couldn't see it from inside the feeling. Then, in January, 2 months before graduation, Reena told him her family was relocating, far away. And then she said 7 words that split his life into a before and an after. She said, "Come with me or lose me." He was 20 years old. He thought that was romance. The facts as they stood in that moment. A multinational engineering company had made him a placement offer worth approximately $3,000 a month at 22 to a boy from a factory neighborhood. That wasn't just a job. It was a complete rewriting of his family's financial history. 3 generations of a particular kind of struggle, and this single letter could end it. He had made it to the final interview round. One more day. The interview was Thursday. Reena's family was leaving Wednesday. He left on Wednesday. His father found out 3 days later. He didn't shout. Arjun said he almost wished he had. His father sat at the kitchen table, hands flat on the surface, and looked at the wall for a long time. Then he said very quietly, "I see." 2 words. He didn't speak to Arjun for 4 months. Not out of anger, out of grief. There is a difference. Anger is loud. Grief is quiet. His father's silence was the loudest thing Arjun ever heard. The first year in the new city was genuinely beautiful, and Arjun was careful to say that. A rented room, a 2-burner stove, almost nothing. And they were happy, the way people with nothing are sometimes completely happy, fully present. He understood why people romanticize that kind of life. It is genuinely romantic for about 18 months. After that, it becomes something else entirely. They married at 23 against both families' wishes. First child at 25, second at 27. And somewhere between those 2 births, the silence between them changed texture. It went from comfortable to careful. They stopped finishing each other's sentences. They started choosing their words. Anyone who has been married long enough knows what that shift means. The day you start choosing your words with your spouse is the day something has already begun to die. You just haven't buried it yet. Arjun was working whatever he could find: sales, logistics, a stretch in manufacturing, nothing that built on the last thing. No ladder, just floors, one after another, sideways movement dressed up as progress. His college friends were becoming managers, then directors, then general managers. He heard about them through mutual connections. He told me he wasn't bitter. He was genuinely proud of them. But pride for someone else's success when you are standing still has a very particular weight. It's not jealousy, it's the feeling of a road you can still see but can no longer walk on. Research from the Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization found that men who make significant career sacrifices for romance before the age of 25 face a lifetime income gap of 18 to 34% compared to peers who maintained career continuity. That is not a small number. That is the difference between owning something and always renting, between retiring with dignity and working until your body says no. Arjun's father, with no education, no research, had known it already. He knew it in his hands. He knew it in his silence. His son was 16 when he asked the question at dinner, casually, the way teenagers say devastating things. "Dad, you studied engineering. Why didn't you become an engineer?" The table went quiet. Reena looked at her plate. Arjun looked at his son, who was looking back with nothing but genuine curiosity, no cruelty, just a reasonable question. Arjun said, "Life takes you in different directions, son." His son nodded and went back to his food. He accepted it. Arjun never did. That question lived in him for years. It still does. Reena left when he was 52. Not dramatically. There was no screaming, no confrontation, no single event to blame. She simply sat across from him one evening and said, "I need to find some peace. I don't think I can find it here. I'm sorry." That was it. After 29 years, the quiet end to a quiet erosion. She wasn't cruel. He wasn't angry. They were two people who had used each other up. He sat in the apartment after she left and did the accounting. Practically, he was 52. No engineering career, no pension, no savings to speak of. No professional identity built over decades. And now, no partner. Both roads were gone, the career he abandoned and the love he chose instead. He was standing at an intersection with nothing in either direction. Data from the US Census Bureau and OECD analysis shows that men who experience both career disruption and late divorce face a 340% higher risk of poverty in retirement than peers who maintain both. Arjun is that number, in the flesh, in a one-bedroom apartment, making careful decisions about groceries. He does not blame Reena. He made that point carefully. She didn't ask him to give up his scholarship. She asked him to choose, and he chose. The person he holds responsible, with compassion but total honesty, is the 20-year-old version of himself. The one who confused urgency with wisdom, who confused intensity with love, who was so desperate to feel like he had already arrived that he stopped walking toward where he was actually going. He is 60 now. His children are good people, decent, kind, working people. That is his real legacy, and he holds on to it. But the apartment is quiet, and some evenings the silence has a very specific sound. What he does now is talk to young men in his neighborhood, first-generation boys, bright and hungry and usually dangerously in love. He tells them this story, not to make them cold, but to give them something he never had at 20, a map. Someone who walked this exact road and came back to say, "Here is where it curves, here is where it drops, here is what you cannot see from where you're standing. But I can see it, and I'm telling you while you still have time." The person who asks you to choose between them and your future is not offering you love. They are offering you their fear. Real love does not ask you to shrink. It says, "Build. I'll build too. We'll build together. Come with me or lose me" is not love talking. That is fear. And you are not responsible for managing another person's fear at the cost of your entire future. Your 20s are not just about romance. They are your only opportunity to lay the foundation your 40s and 60s will stand on. You cannot go back and lay it later. If you spend those years following someone else's urgency instead of your own direction, you will spend the rest of your life paying interest on that decision. Arjun knows this not as theory, as a monthly reality. At 20, he thought love was the brave choice. At 60, he knows that building something, while loving, is braver, much braver, because it requires you to hold two things at once and never let go of either. That is harder than choosing one, but it is the only choice that actually holds. If this story reached you, share it today with someone who needs it, not tomorrow, today, because somewhere there is a person at a fork in the road, 20 years old and deeply in love and about to make a choice that will echo for 40 years. They don't need to be talked out of love. They need to be talked into wisdom. There is a difference, and now you know both sides of it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Every story we tell here is the kind that doesn't find its way to the people who need it unless someone carries it there. So carry it. I'll see you next time.